Welcome back to the Automation Podcast, the world's number one industrial automation product and technology show, thanks to you, our audience of highly skilled automation professionals. Now, if you're new to the show, my name is Shawn Tierney from Insights, and I want to thank you and all of our audience for tuning back in this week. And this week on the show, I have an awesome interview I did with Karim Kozman from Schneider Electric. I actually recorded this interview at the Innovation Summit a couple of months ago. And so I think you guys will really enjoy this. And, Karim is a controls engineer who works with motion and PLCs and all kinds of high-tech stuff, the high-tech stuff we talk about all the time on this show. But before we get to that, we got a couple of quick announcements. The first is we want to thank Schneider Electric for sponsoring this episode so we can release it ad-free across all platforms. We really appreciate when vendors sponsor our content and coverage of their products and shows, as it helps underwrite our costs and allows us to keep bringing you new content. Now, the second announcement is from the good folks over at the Automation Museum. This is a public service announcement. They wanted us to let you know that they have just released their latest episode of the History of Automation on YouTube. And this is the episode in which, or the first of two episodes in which the team interviews one of the people who actually worked on developing, creating the original, what many consider the original PLC, the Modicon 084. And as someone who was on the interview team, I got to say, I really think you guys will enjoy this. We interviewed Chuck Shellberg, and he did the software, or what we'd call today the firmware for the Modicon 084, and he just shares so much information about that. It was great to look back and see how it all got started. So in any case, check that out over at youtube.com/@Automation Museum. That is episode 7. Episode 8 will release next Monday. So with that said, let's go ahead and jump into this week's episode in which I interview Karim Kozman from Schneider Electric. Karim, thank you for coming on the show. It's so great. We've already talked so much on the show floor. So, hey, thank you for agreeing to this interview. I'm excited to talk about, the questions we kind of rehearse beforehand, and also this awesome piece of equipment you were telling me about on the show floor. But before we get to that, since this is your first time on the show, can you introduce yourself to our audience? Tell them a little bit about what your background is and, what your job is today.
Okay. First of all, thank you for having me on the show. My name is Karim Kozman. The first thing, I am a fan of the show. So I follow the show very closely, and I advise everybody who wants to learn about automation to just follow you, to understand the history, where we are, and what we're doing right now, and what's the future, because without history, we don't know what's going on. The second thing, I'm an electrical engineer with a degree. I'm also a project manager with a certification and a Scrum Master from Safe Agile. And I'm currently doing as an offer manager in Schneider Electric for machine solutions, motion, robotics, HVAC, and pumping.
And what does an offer manager do?
So the offer manager, it's different, a little bit different than a product manager. The offer manager looks to the products of a company or the solutions from two perspectives. The technical perspective, how the customers look at it, not how the company looks at it, how the customers benefit from the features and specifications, and how the market reacts towards that, especially if it is something new coming to the market, and the commercial side of it. So all the go-to-market strategies, all the marketing campaigns, all the market analysis and numbers and requirements of, how to increase your sales, how to create promotions, how to control the pricing, and so on.
That's very interesting. And you have that electrical engineering background. You get your history, which is quite filled out there. And you've been with Schneider for how long now?
So I have started being an automation engineer in 2008. So quite a way. And then I was with Invensys, happened to be acquired with Schneider. And I was really lucky to be within customers at the delivery section in the big oil wells, big oil rigs in the middle of nowhere. And also with all the R&D teams for either the DCS, Foxborough, Triconics, energy management for motion control, and now with industrial automation. So I kind of captured between customer requirements, R&D requirements, and problems, and also the market strategies, sales strategies. And I love being within automation. I don't like to be away from automation for the rest of my life.
Yeah, well, me too. And I probably should say Gary says hi. So I want to he's a co-host of one of the shows I do. So I know you guys know each other. And, I wanted to talk to you about your observations, right? What challenges are you seeing out there these days? Like from all the customers you're interacting and all the product people you're interacting with, what are some of the um, challenges that you are seeing out there that are facing our industry today?
Um, so our customers are basically, we divide them into three sections: distributors, OEM machine builders, and end users. All of them are bound by system integrators or control engineers. So the system integrator is the backbone of linking what the distributor have, what the OEM can work on and build, and what the end user will need in the end of the story, so for a product to work. We serve these four sections equally or with different strategies, but the most challenge I see is currently with the system integrators or the control engineers. And that's because a couple of years ago and before COVID, we had this new terminology. We called it Industry 4.0. Industry 4.0 came with a very big promise of connecting or creating a terminology called IoT, or Internet of Things, which is now becoming IT/OT. And I didn't mean to just give terminologies as much as it is really separated. The control engineers had to rocket speed learn IT to be IT engineers, as well as OT to do the control on the floor plan and the facilities out there and the conveyors and the pumps over there. So the knowledge of the process became not enough, and they need to learn more since they go into a field and the end user deal with them as they know how to launch a rocket for a mission on Mars, and then how to extract minerals from the bottom of the earth. So they had to embark on this journey, which was too tough because there were no enough technology to support them back before COVID. And then when COVID hit, it became a necessity. And then we discovered later also that our talents and our newer kids out of school, our newer students out of technical colleges, they are not really so interested in control engineering, which created another gap for control engineers that need to learn, and they need also to fill in the gaps. And yeah, I really see the suffer that they are in. I really see the need that they need always training, and training means also waste of resources and especially time. The other thing is the emerging technologies that's nonstop right now. As you can see now in our innovation summit, we have a big room just for technology, newer technologies, not the existing ones at all. And probably also other vendors doing the same thing today. That's why we can be in a very big venues and fill it with too many products, because there are too many things coming out. And my gosh, like, should I know all these together as a control engineer? Definitely, that is too hard. Especially all the students like to know Python, JSON, Visual C, but no, don't give me ladder diagrams or PLC. I don't want to do this. So it is a bit challenging today in the market, and we need to have tools, better tools. With the emerging of artificial intelligence, our R&D are required to provide more facilitation for our control engineers to make their life easier on the OT and help them to know IT.
I think that's so true. There's so many things that the control engineer today has to learn that really wasn't part of their job back in the day. I remember having to explain to control engineers what IGMP snooping and querying was, right? And that was painful, and for all of us. And today, now they have to, a lot of times, they have to get that command line interface out. They have to connect in. They have to be an expert on switches. They have to be an expert on VPNs. They got to be an expert on firewalls. It is really difficult for today's engineer, and they're usually handling more than they did 10 years ago because a lot of their older colleagues have just said, I'm retiring. It's like, a lot of people have worked into that retirement age prior to COVID. And when COVID hit, they're like, you mean I got to put on 3 masks to go to work? I think I'm going to retire. This is that reason I've been waiting for, right? And so I know so many people who did that. And that just puts a burden. And like you said, the younger kids, and I have 2 teenage grandchildren, their interest is not in legacy technology, right? Just like a lot of people going into, who want to work on cars today want to work on electric cars. They don't want to work on the old stuff that there's already a bunch of people that already know that, right? And so it's very understandable, but I think it's a very exciting industry. And when you go out there on the show floor and you're looking at all the robots and machines moving and doing things, I mean, it's exciting. It's exciting to see, I just take any kid into a potato chip factory or a bottling plant, and there's just so much going on, so much moving. Maybe not as exciting in a paper mill or a rock quarry, right? Or on a oil rig. But in any case, I still think that there are a lot of makers out there who want to make on a real scale, not just in their bedroom, making things for their friends and parents. So there's hope for the industry, I think. And I've had a lot of people say, JavaScript or C Sharp or, Python, that it's going to replace 61131. And I'm like, you know, I don't think so, because and maybe you can give me your opinion on that, because I think we think the same on this. Real-time languages that can be deployed based on what the application requires, that can be edited on the fly, can do online changes or runtime downloads. You're not going to get that with a compiled language. And there's just shortcomings in those web-based technologies that don't address mission critical applications that have to run, right? So one example is the people at Facebook locked themselves in and out of their building a few years ago, and nobody could get in and nobody could get out. And for me, the scariest thing is not being able to get out of a building. That's not supposed to be able to happen, right? So, we need systems that can be modified on the fly, especially mission critical systems that can't go down. And so what are your thoughts on that too? You think IEC 61131-3 has a future? Now, before we hear from Karim on that, I do want to take a moment here to thank Schneider Electric for sponsoring this episode and my trip out to their Innovation Summit. Now, this may not be intuitive if you work for a big corporation, but when you're self-employed as a content creator and instructor like I am, there's no big corporation behind you that can foot $3,000-$4,000 worth of travel expenses and interview and publishing expenses to pull these things off. And that's why we really appreciate vendors like Schneider Electric, who value the content we create and value the coverage we do on their products and events when they, sponsor our episodes and, set up these interviews. So I really just wanted to step in here and really thank our sponsors, all of our sponsors, including Schneider Electric, who sponsored this week's episode, for really supporting the work we do here at Insights in Automation. And with that said, let's go ahead and jump back into this week's interview with Karim Kozman.
Yeah. So first of all, as an advice, if you want to convince kids to work on automation, don't take them to paper mills. It's the nastiest, dirtiest, smelliest place on the whole earth. Okay. Oh yeah, and add to this too. The second thing is these students today that I have met more of them on all trade shows, they have their own data center and AI model in their backyard, in their garage. They already are excelling on these type of knowledges. So when you tell them go and your job is just to control this PLC and to do a couple of motion and robotics here and there, it won't be that interesting. There has to be some sort of newer technology that comes to the market with their gadgets, the gadget that they know, like artificial intelligence, like open software-defined automation, something that they rely on. And as we have launched we've been talking about open software-defined automation, which is basically saying to Mr. Customer, you can replace the PLC that is from any vendor that you probably don't know what are the components of the PLC with a PC that you know that it is an Intel-based or NVIDIA GPU. So these are famous. These are very well-known, robust, and I think, as you have seen on the shop floor today, Intel has an interest into industrial automation, which makes the excitement more for our newer talents to jump on this type of industry, to use this powerful resources to make our robotics, our conveyor works, and to sustain our CPG, pharmaceuticals. These industries require this type of knowledge. But today, we have more power that we are introducing to the market, and we are so glad that our newer talents are understanding this, because it's still some sort of hard to understand by the control engineers like our age that used to do ladder diagrams overnight just to make, one sew machine work on a CNC machine, or G-code. Oh my God, G-code. So the tools and the opportunities that this big manufacturer starts to do. I mentioned Intel, NVIDIA. Now, if you go on Copilot and on your chat and ask it to create logic for you, it will create the logic and say that in collaboration with the PLC vendors, we are doing that right now in a structured text format. So all these big tech companies now looking into industry, which is, I think that's the industry now 4.0 that we've been talking about. That is where the IT world takes care of the OT world. We create one harmony that we call it IoT, which was really an understandable terminology back then.
Yeah, and I just feel like I have to throw out caution to people, right? So we've heard the horror stories, how somebody plugs their phone into the charger at the airport and it gets hacked because somebody came in and replaced the charger with a an intelligent device that can hack their phones. And then they bring it to the plant, and that's a vector in for the viruses and for the ransomware and whatnot. And so, I think as an industry, we're getting that word out very well. We're gonna, people have to know that every device they have that has electronics in it, any microprocessor-based device, is a vector for a security breach in their facility, and they're going to be cognizant of that. The other thing, though, I think is we're hearing stories. We heard a lot this week at the show about, AI is not perfect. Okay. So we've had stories about lawyers getting in trouble because the court documents they filed were not only not correct, but they were AI generated and bogus, right? And lawyers are getting reprimanded for that. I mean, we're talking grown adults. And the other thing I think too is that we had somebody talking about financial. He was asking AI for some financial advice, then they went into their spreadsheet and did it, and they're like, it didn't work. And then they asked the AI, "Hey, why didn't it work? Is this your story? Why don't you give us the end of that story?"
So I was trying to ask the AI on a couple of shares and cryptocurrency to start working with, and how they are reflecting with my taxes. But unfortunately, I did it on the day that AWS went off the grid, and I got hilarious advices, which I thought it was kind of risky or crazy to make me like one of the Fortune 500 in a couple of seconds, but this doesn't work. But as you said about security, we are living in that world today. If our main data centers and our main suppliers of technology are down, we as users are harmed very much. My kids at daycare, I couldn't know anything about them when AWS went down. So energy and sustainability of this energy is a real core now of our life. And if we're going to talk about cybersecurity, I think we are harmed by too many attacks on oil pipelines and water supplies, or controllers in the middle of nowhere just doing water pumping and lifting to all the residents in a small city. These things gives us a very big warning that there are hackers and there are people out there that like to mess up with our industrial automation installed base. That's why there are so many measures that's been applied. The IEC 62443 is a great standard for encryption. It's very important now. And as a European country, CRA has been on our radar. We have been creating products that is compliant with the CRA or Cyber Resiliency Act, which is clear that all the vendors has to follow this act before December 2027. Otherwise, they cannot create connected products. So cybersecurity has become too important now in our industry, which wasn't the same thing again before COVID. Now it became so famous. You can see cyber attacks on the news on daily basis.
Our crew has given us the flag. We kind of delayed starting because we were having so much fun in the pre-show. But in any case, we're going to have to do this again, Karim. But before we go, I want you to tease up this awesome product you were telling me about that you have on the table here. Tell us a little bit about this product.
All right. So the Modicon M660, as we are the Schneider company, we own the Modicon brand. Modicon M660 is our new high-performance controller. It is not an IPC. It's not a PLC. It's both together. So you can go with your software, which is called Machine Expert, EcoStruxure Machine Expert. You configure it as a normal controller to control your robots, control your motion, your IOs here and there. And also, it has an operating system by choice, either Windows or Linux as default, where you can apply your virtual PLCs through orchestration on a container. So you have a machine controller and also you have a virtual controller, multiple virtual controllers as well. And it's all backboned by the OPC UEFX protocol that makes this controller goes up to 300 axes of synchronized motion, basically equal to 70 robots on the shop floor. So it's really rugged, it's really so powerful. It is powered by Intel chips, and it goes up to Intel i7. So you get great power out of it. In addition, it has free PCIe slots, so you can expand it to have your GPU, your Wi-Fi card, your 5G card. So now it doesn't become only a controller or an IPC, it becomes also a small data center. That's why you see the big heatsink over there. And it has a display port, so you can connect it to a touchscreen HMI. You don't need to have an HMI with it, just a touch screen. And you have your own SCADA, your own HMI on it with different softwares we have, like Wonderware. So it is a multi-purpose controller. It is very fast controller as well because of the Intel, and it is very robust, very futuristic. We are opening up for field trials. Too many customers like to try it today. And in addition, we provided an artificial intelligence with it on the software side of it. So to help all our control engineers to rest a little bit of writing too many codes, or at least deciphering old codes. We have all these offers that we can launch to help, again, our control engineers to boost to the Industry 4.0 era.
I have so many questions on this, but I'm getting the hook. I hope you'll take my invitation to come back on the show, maybe via MS Teams in a few weeks, and give us the full skinny on that. But for now, I want to thank you, Karim, for coming on the show. It's been a blast meeting you and talking to you here at the Innovation Summit.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And I'm so happy to be on the show. Appreciate that.
Well, I hope you enjoyed this week's episode. I was great rewatching that interview I did with Karim. He's just such a great guy. So if you ever meet him in person, please say hi for me. And hopefully we'll get him on the show again in the near future. But with that said, please, if you have any questions for him, reach out directly to him. He's just a very approachable person, very knowledgeable too. So with that said, I also want to take a moment here to thank Schneider, who sponsored this episode so we could release it to you on all platforms ad-free. We really appreciate it when vendors like Schneider support our coverage of their products and shows, and just wanted to say thank you again to Schneider Electric for their support. And with that, I want to thank you for tuning back in this week. There would be no reason to have the show if we didn't have an audience. And you guys are the best audience out there in podcast land, so in YouTube land. So really appreciate you all, even those of you listening and watching over at theautomationblog.com, which I know many of you do, hundreds of you do as well. So with that said, I want to wish you all good health and happiness. And until next time, my friends, peace.